All right. This is Sam Morris, creator of Zen Warrior Training, and I am so pleased to have on today someone who I first heard about Satyen a few years ago from a mutual friend. And he spoke of him with such a high regard. And I knew immediately that I needed to meet Satyen. And for reasons that, let's just say, I could feel like this guy was going to have a major impact on the way that I see the world, and that we would resonate strongly with each other and with each other's message. Without even meeting him, just hearing about him, I knew that he was a brother, a kindred spirit, someone who lives and breathes the same basic unifying philosophy that I live and breathe, with the same intention of reaching high performers and having a ripple effect that reaches globally. So without further ado, Satyen Raja is my guest today. Thank you so much for coming on today and joining me today, Satyen.
Brother, thanks so much for a lovely introduction. And I too, when I first met you, it was brother at first sight, first vibration,
Yes.
first touch of each other's heart. And you know, I was very honored to be able to drink of the well of your transcendence and wisdom. And so I'm glad that we're here and we get to share and have fun with everyone here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was, oftentimes I start out these conversations with a bio, and I realized that there were no labels that I could assign you, that you have lived in such a way as to defy and transcend labels for your entire life, really. And getting to know you more, realize that this is something that has started early on in your life, that your spiritual process was something that you devoted yourself to at a very, very early age. You were not sort of a late comer to spirituality. I think a lot of people have maybe approach spiritual wisdom after having gone through perhaps some type of a trauma, or maybe after having some kind of a midlife crisis or something like that. But when I learned of your story, this is something that you've been immersed in for since what, you were about 10 years old or even younger, something like that. So tell us about what initially ignited this fire inside of you, if you can.
I was blessed to have very wonderful parents and a brother, East Indian background. And so by observing my parents' devotion to sadhana, doing their daily home prayers every day, I started developing a curiosity. What is that? And when I asked my parents, my father specifically, who would read from the Bhagavad Gita and do his ceremony every day religiously without saying a word, with my mother as well. When I inquired, what is this and what is God? And he says to me, he says, I can't tell you. I can only experience it myself. Your journey is to find what God is. And so you have to go speak with people who know about God, who know about these things. I'm a simple businessman. All I know is what's in this book, and I read and I try to understand the best I can, but you got to discover it for yourself. So as a youngster, I was quite frustrated. I want my parents to give me the answer, but later I realized what a blessing that I didn't have some type of strong religious overlay imprinted upon me, and they encouraged that I become inquisitive about the nature of life and existence. And then I saw Bruce Lee and Kwai Chang Caine in the TV show Kung Fu as a youngster as well, and then other Kung Fu. When I saw this, I had a homecoming. What I was feeling inside myself, this form of way of life, what I call temple life,
Mm.
living in harmony with truth in existence. Later, I would recognize is called the Tao or Taoism, or the idea of being in alignment, in coherence with the way things are, with actuality, with truth, with love.
Mm. Mm.
So I went on this hunt. I went on this seeking to find a Kung Fu master at a ripe age. And it was just really, I have to say, by divine providence, all the things that came together to come at the feet of an awakened man in a whole school and his high level black belts. And so I became immersed in this path of the warrior sage since I was a youngster. And one of the foundational, I guess, principles of this path of the warrior sage I learned coming from Bruce Lee's wisdom of absorb what's useful. So keep finding what is useful. How can I add to my repertoire physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, societally, existence, earth, Gaia? How can
Yes.
I take myself and keep expanding, right?
Yes.
So absorbing what's useful. Another aspect of this path is discarding what's no longer useful. And to do that, it requires a continuous inquiry into, is my current truth the only truth?
Mm-hmm.
And to really keep undermining the underpinnings of fixated belief systems, to look for the roots of my biases, my fixated belief systems. And then if we keep going down that journey, there's an awareness, a transformation of those prior imprints, and then a new release of freedom that empowers choices and action and manifestation. So
Yes.
absorb what's useful, discard what's not, and come up with your own creations. Like you call it Zen Warrior. I call this path of the warrior sage. It's the
Yes.
same universal archetypal principles in all of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Absorb what's useful, discard what isn't. I can so resonate with that. And in my own experience, particularly around the idea of where I've had to come to terms over the years of my own evolution in my life and in my work around particularly around what I might consider sort of like a Buddhist dogma around non-materialism, and how there's an emphasis on not attaching to anything that is impermanent, and that it is only through letting go of that which is impermanent that we can experience a more enlightened state of consciousness, and that the attachment is that which causes us to stay in Maya, or the illusion of the material world, and that transcendence is dependent upon a non-attached approach. And so when you say that, I really resonate with with what you're saying, because I've particularly with regards to wealth and material success, in my process, my own internal process, I've often had to look at, well, where has my own where have I accepted a dogma, a sort of what might be a Buddhist dogma, over the spirit of the communication, and where is this true for me, and where am I reinforcing a limited belief around things like wealth from some sort of a dogmatic belief system that the attachment will somehow prevent me from experiencing a more liberated sense of my spirit in the material world. Yeah. And so my sense is that this is something that is a very common problem with people who are on a spiritual path and also looking to develop success and influence in the material world. So I'm wondering if you could speak to that, because you're working with people who are very high performers, who have, CEOs of large businesses, people who are very much in the material world, and yet at the same time, you are teaching these principles of non-attachment. Is this something that you find a common theme in terms of working with people with, and just sort of speak to that?
The way I experience it is there's flows in sadhana, flows in one's personal journey of evolution and consciousness. So sometimes we come across patterns and systems and philosophies like Buddhism, which expound the idea of non-attachment. The very reason is that if you become attached to it and it's already breaking apart, falling apart, sooner or later you're going to lose it. If you stop attaching to it now, when you do lose it, it's not going to hurt you as much. It's not going to bother you as much. You're going to be less and less moved, and so there's great power in that profound raising of one's consciousness and ability to go deep into the witness state of being and to de-identify from things being of value, and then putting value on the things that matter most, which to me and for many of us are beings, people, love, joy, connection. Things come and go.
Yes.
So that whole wisdom is a profound wisdom to cultivate, especially if you've been very immersed in what we would call the material world. But in actuality, we're all immersed in the material world right now.
Yes.
We have bodies. We're experiencing,
our bodies are
whether
material.
You're poor, whether you're in an ashram, whether you're in a zendo, or whether you're in a Cadillac, you are in the material world.
Yes.
So it's not the material world that's the problem. It's the attachment in consciousness to a form that represents something less than spiritual.
Right. Yeah, I love it.
So even if you look at it, even the idea of non-attachment is an attachment to materialism being somehow stagnating or collapsing or contracting of your spiritual path.
Yes. Yeah, I think that was so well put. So well put.
Now the humor of it is my experience is it's a Taoist reality. It's everything arises out of infinity and first has to come into form through the expression of dimensionality, time and space, up and down.
Speak more to that.
So we have to have the world for the world of form to be there. There has to be dimensionality, which requires a subject-object relationship. Me, the observer, and that which is observed. That alone is a foundational duality.
Yes.
So too is wealth and poor.
Yes.
So too is spirit, observer, and material.
Yes.
So any type of leaning into screw the spiritual is only getting half the picture and is half diluted. Those who are saying screw the material are only getting half the picture and are diluted, because you cannot have one without the other.
Yes. And in just fact, the same way that Go ahead.
I was saying if we source ourselves in source, that which is the non-material, and we rest in that as the essence and the seed of our power, our soul, the comfort of our soul, and we allow ourselves to dial into that as a foundational navigation system in which to carry our life through, then material and non-material all fall away. Those distinctions don't become a problem. They're only a problem in consciousness. They're not a problem in the heart.
So beautifully said. So beautifully said. I knew I was going to love this conversation. Yes. Yes, it is that conflict that is what we are, that it is the conflict that is the Maya. The conflict, the notion that there is a conflict is actually the Maya. The notion that there is a conflict is the illusion, that there is no conflict. And that's just absolutely so profound. And I love how you're saying resting. I think you put it resting in the seat of the heart, or resting in the seat of the soul, making that your orientation so that all things come from that place. Now, I want to speak to, because my experience is, and this is related to how I train the people that I work with too, that manifestation is something that is, there's an ease to manifestation from that place, because there is no longer sort of a conflict between who I am right now and what I desire. And when that resonance, when that harmony is present, where the who I am now and what I desire, when there's a unification of that which I am and that which I desire, then there is naturally no longer a struggle occurring. And naturally, I can live from my heart versus sort of strategizing from my mind and trying to navigate through the world from a mental construct of what I think that I need. And naturally, of course, I'm also more magnetic too. I'm more attractive as a human being, and I attract more opportunities into my life because I already have what I need. I already have what I desire because I am what I desire, versus thinking that the desire will be fulfilled by something, some future outcome, some future circumstance, which will make me feel more safe, more secure, more this, more that, or whatever. The more is already here, the more is already present. And so then it reduces or extinguishes the conflict between that which I am and that which I am going for. And so I'd love to hear you speak to that, because I think you're nodding your head. You can clearly resonate with what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm loving what you're sharing. That's beautiful.
Yes, and this also puts me in a place where I feel like I can participate with that which the universe is inviting me into, versus creating a separate intention that I might call my individual intention to sort of prove something to myself. Instead, I can basically, from that place, if I already have what I desire, if I already am what I desire, then I can sense, oh, there's an invitation to do this, because it's something wants me, there's an emergent process of which I am inseparable from, and it is naturally orchestrating something through me to ask me to participate in the world in a certain manner. So yeah, I'd love to hear you speak to that.
Well, I just want to drink that in as a fountain of wisdom there. That was beautiful. So yes, it's a big yes to all that you just shared. And there's different angles of how I experience manifestation. I'll give it from a few different viewpoints or angles. The biggest reach, I'll start there, is that there's actually nothing really to manifest or to bring into reality. That there's realities which already have the full creation at hand. So if you want a beautiful, whatever it is, an inner experience, an outer experience, a thing, whatever, right? Whatever you choose, that there's actually a parallel reality which has that there. Now the tension of having to create something you can let go of. That's the first thing. You can let go of all the ritualizations, all the drumming up, of willpower, all the crushing, and just assume it's there. Now, having that assumption, it would be very wise to feel into, where is my desire coming from, my wishes. And in a simple model, a first stage desire, calling, dream, vision, mission is based on a me-centric consciousness, traditionally called egoic state of being, where it's you first. Obviously can go to its worst offensive versions of megalomania and dictatorship and whatever, but even we have that inner tyrant within us, we have that inner terrorist within us. And sometimes for reasons of hurt, trauma, sometimes of wanting to prove ourselves in ways that we wished would have fulfilled earlier. Sometimes we have unconscious communications of, I'm going to be working extremely hard so the world sees that my valiance and my nobility, they will love and respect me. We've got all these interesting imprints and constellations of identities that we've picked up to navigate existence. Many of them are trying to fulfill things that can never really be fulfilled. And when we're coming from that place, we're in a very me-centric place, which then oscillates, brings us into realities where there's other people who are very me-centric, and the world reflects the transmission of your doubts, of your cynicism, and it shows you proof of your hypothesis, which is really the mirror reality that is coming back at you. There's a thinker and a prover always.
Which is the ultimate confirmation of free will, it seems. That free will gets to be confirmed in every situation, no matter how you wish to use it. It will say, yes, you have had the free will to create this situation. It will confirm that which one puts out there. It will say, yes, you did this. Good job. Good job. You totally, yes, you are absolutely correct. The world is nothing but a bunch of individuals who are in a fight with each other. Yes, that is absolutely correct, because that's what you thought, that's what you intended, that's what you expected to see. So it will confirm that reality for you, versus that which, operating from a different dimension of consciousness, and you say that everything is already exactly as I want, and this is my imagination is calling in new forms of abundance, new forms of possibility, then it will also confirm that.
We are all prophecy makers. Now, on top of that, we're all adding to that. So my first stage, me-centric energy, yours, everyone else's, the more strong that is, the paradox in power we have. We have less power because we think we're an isolated I identity, not tapped into the resonant field of the whole. And so we got to win, we got to beat, we got to defeat, we got to crush, we got to kill, we got to make those types of terms that are infused in growth of businesses and just in popular culture nowadays. Now we can grow to the next level of power, which would be second stage, which is we-centric. What would be good not only for myself, but my team, my organization? Yeah. We can extend that out. What would be good for the supply chains? We can extend that out. What would be good for the planet? We can supply that out. We can expand that. What would be, how can our architecture of the way we take care of our team and our, how can we flourish their life? How can we support and make our supply chains regenerative and good for the all? Like the more we go into the we-centric space, we're tapping in to a much greater field of power, which amplifies, magnifies our creation capacity.
Yes.
You're just more free.
It occurs to me that what you're saying maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe even, and even now for that matter, by so many people who are in business, so many people, there would be a sense of, well, what Satyan's saying is completely naive. How could we possibly take out the me-centric, win at all costs, go, 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 this, that sort of attitude? How could we possibly abandon that? Because that's the only way to do things. And yet I see the crack in that, the walls of that mentality are rapidly occurring. And I see that. I was actually just speaking yesterday with Keith Ferrazzi, and he's written a whole new book about what he talks about as co-elevation, which is exactly along the same lines as what you're talking about with regards to focusing on the team and leading without authority, and taking the idea of authority out of our traditional business models and looking at how can we all be leading, and how can we support each one of our people on our teams as leaders versus having these hierarchical silo-like structures in our businesses that prevent the talent and the efficiency that comes from each one of the team members having equal respect as team leaders. And so there are these I see these cracks in the wall occurring culturally and with business, and with well-regarded business leaders saying, no, this is not just some fanciful ideal that we're talking about. This is actually going to be essential in moving business forward to the next era. This is not something that, and essential from a logical standpoint, and that the only teams that are going to be able to compete are the ones where everyone is able to participate as a leader on those teams.
Oh, you see, the way I experience it is like, either we evolve from this me-centric to this symbiotic-centric, this relational-centric space where we're really digging in and aiming to become more altruistic. Yes, aiming to live more in accordance with the wisdom of natural laws, and to live in a way that supports the ecosphere, because we are it. And here's the smart businesses are going to evolve, the rest are going to die. It's not even how long will you're dying. If you're a business leader here and you don't have the message, or you got the message and you haven't been following it, I'll tell you something, you're going to die fast. Your business is going to crash. I'm telling you straight between your eyes. And if you're willing to take the impulse of all this time, where we have this great contemplative time that COVID has brought us, it's brought us to our knees in many ways. It's halted us. As leaders, as business people, we get to see our effects on the planet when we just slow down. The poisons are less, the air is cleaner, the water is cleaner. We are doing this. We are responsible as business leaders. We cannot take this in a light fashion anymore, I believe. We have to find within us the courage to be willing to sacrifice, and here's the thing, you asked earlier, we have to let go of the me to get to the we. No, it's me, then we grow, we include the we, but in a healthy way, which includes the we-centric space. Now, we've got teams, I know you do, I do, one of the organizations that I'm an incredible, we have an incredible team called undercurrent.com, and it's regenerative business experts. And we know how to do this. We have it here. The thing right now is it takes courage. And then ultimately, if you do that, what will happen is, I promise you, there'll be a profound infusion of life force, of evolutionary life force, a new aligning, cohesive force that happens in your organization. But we as leaders, we got to make the courageous move now, or we die and we bring the earth down with us.
So if say I'm a business leader listening to this conversation right now, and I say, okay, I understand philosophically and conceptually where you're coming from. I get the idea. but that sounds like a huge paradigm shift for my business. And you know, I'm aware that I'm driving a barge, not a Ferrari. And how do I move? What do I need to do to begin to take incremental steps towards that evolution versus take my existing business model and all of the hierarchical structures, et cetera, and suddenly try to change things overnight, which of course would be impossible. And even if it were possible, would probably lead to something worse than what they've got now. What sort of incremental steps do business leaders need to be aware of to start to initiate that they can actually follow through with and feel successful in this process?
I think the first and foremost thing is in the leadership team, there has to be a galvanizing courage to want to make bold moves, to be the banister who breaks the 4-minute mile, that shows the rest, hey, yes, you can do this too, and now way under 4 minutes. So there needs to be a galvanizing of courage to take yourself, your shareholders, your team into, as they say, or to boldly go where humans have not gone before, where we need to go. And all it takes is look at the statistics of the planet to see how much information is out there. There's no more information needed. There's no more think tanks that are needed to tell us where and what direction on the brink of doom and destruction we're on. If we don't know by now, if we do know, then as leaders, I believe we have a responsibility to respond to the urgency of these times. And that's my loving invitation. And if you have that, we are here. You can reach out to myself, reach out to Sam. We have people who are very trained in bringing organizations from wherever they are. And our first step with Warrior Sage is we go through a full training, which we call chaos to coherence. We look for the interference patterns in mindset. Hey, if this is the creation we want to have, we want to move this way. What are all the yeah, buts and if, yeah, and are you kidding? Yeah, all of that. We flush all of those out. Mm-hmm. Those are interference patterns. If you look at Nikola Tesla, you look at Elon Musk, you look at Richard Branson, you look at some of the most brilliant business leaders of our generation, they don't have that yeah, but, what, how. They don't have that.
Right.
They were found a way to remove themselves from those unconscious obstacles that made something feel like a big gargantuan task, where all it took was a little switch in consciousness and in the consciousness of the team, and you dissolve all those limiting belief systems. In a day, it can happen with executive teams. In a day, where we can go from total chaos and impossibility, where it feels like it's impossible to achieve such high aims, because there are a lot of factors against us, a lot of. But I believe, and from my experience, time and time again, working with executive teams, is that these immediately can be dissolved and new patterns now emerge. Creativity at a whole new sphere. And you know what? It always turns out to be less moves than way more moves. It always turns out to be simpler, more elegant, more beautiful. Whenever we remove the obstacle patterns in consciousness, the fear, the lethargy, the momentum of the past, and we're willing to create new reality and new abundance. We're talking about abundance for the all. That pattern is already here on the planet to tap into. It's already revealing itself. All we have to do is have the courage to say yes to meeting that pattern that's emerging, which is omni-win, which is Gaia-centric. The right people, the right resources, the path will clear because you're doing the right thing.
I love that. I love that message. I so resonate with that message, completely resonate with that message. And I'm going to throw in a yeah, but that someone might be having to that communication right now. They might say,
there should be 1,000 yeah, but.
There should be
There's endless yeah buts.
Endless yeah buts. So I come to your day long retreat or your weekend long retreat, and I get my team super energized, and I see exactly what you are saying. It totally makes sense. Like, we get it. We're on it. The team feels like there's a unprecedented resonance that's happening between them. There's a totally new energy, connection that's happening. And then on Monday, Tanya from HR is going to have some problem, and then that's going to affect this and this and this, and it's going to be back at square one where we started. And what are we going to do if you're not there to keep coaching us through this whole process? What do we do once you're no longer in the picture? Are we going to be able to sustain that level of connection once we no longer have you holding the container and mentoring us through this process? What does that look like?
First of all, anyone looking for a panacea is in delusion. To live and do the right thing with your business, to elevate it so that it's resonating at a higher level of frequency, it becomes good for the all. It becomes a place where you can feel proud about, where business can be created in a healthy way on all levels of being. When it becomes a place fulfilling and joyful that evokes passion and joy and connectivity and connection and heart between all its team members, there's something that grows within the soul. A power comes to you. So first of all, that's what I want to share. And even better than us, you, me having to come in, we'll come directly into your training room through Zoom. We'll take your team, if you have a team in coherence, an executive team, give us 2 hours over a personalized training, and we will bring them into a high state of coherence from chaos. Then you'll also be trained in ways to continue these cultivations. But any panacea is an illusion. My philosophy is that we need to be in a dojo. And by a dojo, I mean a place that you go to regularly to dial up. Where are you? Where have you been? Where are you now? And where are you going? The essential questions. And so I have a dojo on my property where we train martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and martial arts. It's not like I go in there once and now I'm a jiu-jitsu expert. Are you kidding me? It's like 20 years to get a black belt, training diligently. And so if you want to be a master of the new generation of business, and the thing about business people that I really appreciate and like is that we have a general tenacity to life. We have the willingness to do whatever it takes to get the job done. The biggest struggle is the unconscious struggle patterns. Struggle is effort that's laced with negative emotion. We need effort.
It's so beautiful. Say that one more time. That's just that is such a good statement. Say that. Say it again. Just say it again. For those, struggle is effort laced with negative emotions. Boom.
Negative expectations. Pining, whining, complaining, overpowering others, lashing out, getting extremely frustrated. So one of the principles of the path of the warrior sage is to, you said another way, as Buddha said, is to lower attachment. Another way of looking at it is lower importance. Whenever you find yourself emotionally too filled up, it means you've got something hooked, thinking something is more important than it needs to be. And when you can learn to relax that grip of control over what you're making excessively important, then what happens is there's a flow state starts to emerge. So we got to lower importance, but then as we lower importance, we also have to increase impeccability. So in the team trainings, you know, I have an amazing organization called Casoro Group in Texas, a group of real estate companies. that we train and coach, and we've embedded Warrior Sage, what we call transcendent culture practices. And from the CEO all the way down to the ground floor individual person working, they've been all trained in very powerful communication methodologies to remove all BS from their speak and just speak directly to each other as beings. They've learned how to create affinity. They've learned what pisses each other off and not to do that. They've learned how to, and here's the other key. Here's the other big egoic key to go from first to second stage of consciousness, from me to we-centric. And that's to see that in any organization, one of the biases we have in our space, in our mind, is that, and one of the imprints is that we need to raise our significance. We need to raise our reputation to be noticed by the higher ups. And that's how I move up the ladder. Whatever I do to raise my reputation and significance. But on a consciousness level, what happens is the aiming to raise your own significance and reputation always backfires. It creates an imbalance in the field. And the very thing, when you see people trying to build their reputation, aren't I beautiful, aren't I rich, aren't I, they always get knocked down.
Yes.
It's always
Eventually.
better to be humble all the time.
Yes.
Right? Better to be humble all the time than to be humiliated all at once.
Yes. So true. So true. So a lot of people might hear this and think, well, if I'm not raising my significance, then what's going to motivate me? You know, how am I going to feel motivated if it's not about raising my significance? Well, won't I just want to stay in bed all day?
Exactly. So guess what? So in our trainings with teams, we get each other to sit down with each other and say a way that you lower my reputation and significance is. And we get to share it wholeheartedly, without reservation, honestly, human to human. A way you lower my reputation and significance is, I would tell you, Sam, in a way that you raise my reputation and significance, Sam, is. And then I would tell you that. And then we would tell that to each other as a team, as an executive team, whatever teams that we're on. Now that I know what lowers your reputation, I don't want to do that for you. By nature, I want to help you raise your reputation and significance, especially if you've told me how.
That is fantastic.
So now that we have that, and everyone knows honestly, and they've shared vulnerably and integrally, without the bullshit of niceties, in a safe, powerful container where no one's going to get shit on. Now people can feel, now let's make it a Robin Hood culture, all for one, one for all. Now we go out of our way to raise each other's significance and reputation. Now that I know how, now the energy goes from chaos to coherence. We're all for one, one for all.
It's so good. It's so, what I hear you saying is that it's about taking away the illusion of significance, of reputation and significance, and replacing it with the embodied practice of reputation and significance by actually, you can easily gain reputation, what you think is reputation and significance, by having a new job title, which maybe gives you greater authority and a bigger salary. But that is an illusion of reputation and significance, which is, by its nature, being an illusion, is impermanent and is something that is bound to fall apart at some point. What you're talking about is saying, hey, that's an illusion. Don't go for that type of reputation and significance. That's a me-based, ego-based approach to reputation and significance. Instead, ask, how am I raising your reputation and significance right now? And how can you do that for me? And how can we do that together in a way that will actually be tangible versus something where there's a label which is supposed to identify that as something that it's not.
In my experience with many teams, you know, this group in Texas, as an example, that we've had some deep, intimate work for the last 2 years, and the company's just been booming, 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 booming. And, you know, they're close to $1 billion in assets now. And that's the externalization. But what's going on in the company is this deeper level of connection and affinity and care and wholeness. And they're aiming to raise each other's rep. When you see it, the feeling, you know, people say company culture, they give it all these fancy terms. At the end of the day, it's the feeling, the emotional space. Do you feel good in it? Do you feel, does it help you arise, or does it weaken and deaden you? Does it suck life force, or does it give you life force?
Right.
So by creating organizations that give life force, that give life force, that you don't feel drained. You're not waiting for the weekend to take a rest, the dreaded weekend, and then right. Sunday night you're going, oh no, we shouldn't be doing this as leaders. The way to a new reality is already here. The theoretical stuff, you already know. Now it's time to create the experiences that we want to generate the multidimensional abundance that we know our soul can birth into existence. And all it takes is our warrior within to be courageous enough to step into a new identity, an identity that we want to have for ourselves, that is creating transcendent business, transcendent leadership, transcendent cultures, ones that are beyond the ordinary, extraordinary, by raising the reputation of each other and by adopting and bringing in regenerative symbiotic relationship to the whole, because it's natural. It's not supernatural to be in relationship to the whole. It's the best thing we can do for each other. It's the best thing, not only for the bottom line, it's the best thing for your own health, my health. It's the best thing for our children. It's the best thing for the animals. You know? So
I love what you're saying, and one of the things that I noted that you were just saying, or that you were talking about, was related to the fatigue that people tend to feel at the end of the week, or the resentment that they feel on a Monday morning when they have to get up and go to work, and it's even saying they have to, you know, versus they want to. You know, just that resistance that people are feeling, that they're using, you know, caffeine as a way of showing up and trying to make it through that resistance. Anything to sort of charge their energy enough so that they can, you know, convince themselves to stay, you know, grinding away at this unsatisfying, unfulfilling job that they're doing, that is creating this sense of fatigue, when there's really no reason why they should be experiencing fatigue if everything is structured properly within the business in a way that is efficient and which is respectful of each person's talents and gifts and energy. With that type of structure, I think one of the things that is important to emphasize here, again, to anyone who might be skeptical of the approach that we're talking about here, you're helping to restore people's inspiration and energy that they bring to the work environment. And if you just think about it purely from an efficiency standpoint, when someone is actively engaged in what they're doing, when they love what they're doing, when they feel supported by the people that they are working with, there is no longer that type of effort combined with the negative emotion that you were just talking about that creates that resistance. Instead, you are loosening up resistance. You're restoring people's energy to themselves, so that theoretically, at the end of the day, they might be tired, but they've enjoyed their day. They might be physically tired, but they're not exhausted emotionally, because they've felt fulfilled by the work that they do. and just the efficiency alone from that type of structure seems to be, I mean, there's no way of calculating that into, if you're looking strictly from a place of ROI. Well, think about the ROI that comes about when your team members love the environment that they're showing up to, and they feel respected, and they feel that their authority is being respected. They feel that their gifts and talents are being respected, and they're actively engaged versus feeling like they're in a constant state of struggle to make it through any given day.
Oh, and this is the wave of the future. And it's the wave of actually right now. And the companies that have been implementing these transcendent culture, transcendent business values, going back to this feeling of tribe and connectivity and putting human values first and foremost, and now bringing in our connection to the planet. It sounds altruistic. It might sound a lot to do, but you know what? When you have the courage and you just say, okay, we're going to go for it, it's actually far more simple than it looks. It's always far more simple, is what I have found in my experience. And that brings me to the point of, the old expressions were all, excuse me, to push ourselves into more and more performance. What can we do to get more performance, more output, more productivity from our people, our human resources? What a term, what a degrading term in itself.
Right.
Degrading of our human nature as a resource. We are beyond resources.
Yeah.
We are infinite beings.
Yeah.
And so this continuous drive to push into peak performance, the burnout, I don't need to speak it. Many of us have experienced burnout. I've experienced burnout running companies in the old-fashioned way that I used to. And so through many, I've ran companies for many years now. So since, at least 25, 30 years now, I've been running companies, many different organizations and such, and mentoring and coaching numerous. And one of the things that I've seen that's prevalent in the old school is the glorification of struggle, overwhelm, anxiety, burning the candles at both ends.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, it's almost glorified to some part of the self or expected. And I believe that that's killing us, because that's killing us. It truly is causing all types of illness in the family breakdowns. It's causing health breakdowns. It's causing mental, emotional breakdowns. The detriments are far too numerous.
Absolutely.
So what's next?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think we need to go now to peak performance. Sorry to interrupt.
No. Go ahead.
I was saying, from peak performance, I believe where we're evolving into, and in the work that I do, we call it peak existence. How can we create our lives and our cultures and our organizations so everyone is experiencing peak existence? The meaning of life is being fulfilled. And for me, the ultimate meaning of life is affinity with others, that we get along, that we join together in good ways, that we enjoy human company, not just for an outcome, but for the pleasure and the connectivity and the joy of being together. And then the purpose and the vision and the mission comes together in that crucible, in that grounding of we're here together as a team. What we create now will motivate us. What we have purpose for, what goal we have, what mission that's inspiring, that's another very powerful piece in this development of transcendent culture. Missions and visions that move beyond the ordinary, making a dent in the universe. Such a very noble mission.
So well said. You're absolutely right about the burning the candle at both ends culture being glorified for years and years, it's this sort of, I mean, it is so dysfunctional. And how do we look around and look at what we've created and not see the dysfunction inherent within that type of mentality? And I think about the ramifications of that type of attitude and approach to life, and what it means not only for the individual's personal health and mindset, but also the implications for that person's family, how that energy of burning at the candle at both ends leaves no additional energy to be able to bring to your family, to be able to, share in what is really meaningful and having loving relationships with your family. If you're always burnt out, how can you possibly do that? Even if you're making money to support the family, you're not going to be having a fulfilling time with them. You're going to be more reactive. You're going to be more testy. You're going to be full of anxiety, and you're going to not have any kind of additional energy to bring to anything other than the work that you're showing up for, let alone the needs of the planet too. I mean, if our own needs aren't being met because we don't feel fulfilled and we're burning the candle at both ends, I mean, it is so easy to excuse ourselves from doing what we need to do to help the community or to help our country or to help the planet as a whole. We're not going to be thinking about the environment if we're already so stressed out from the way that we are approaching our lives that we feel totally depleted. We're going to be completely ignoring the environment and abusing the environment, or completely ignoring our families or abusing our families because we are burning the candle at both ends and we don't feel fulfilled. And so I think what you speak to is so powerful, because this is the revolution that must occur. And I want to bring back something that you brought in earlier, that this period of COVID right now is giving us the perfect opportunity for this type of self-reflection that needs to happen. And there's no way we absolutely cannot go back to an old paradigm of thinking, which creates more of this type of mentality, which also as another byproduct of that that's just occurring to me right now is the effect on the immune system, that type of mentality has. And also I see COVID as being a big disruptor in a series of what will probably be major disruptions moving forward for many, many years, until there is a restoration of true human potential. Because otherwise, if we are out of resonance with the Tao, we are out of resonance with the planet, and it's going to be reflected in our cultural and business systems. I know I just said
Absolutely,
a lot there.
brother.
That was a big monologue.
No, that's awesome. I'm with you, and I believe many of us are all here together. Now, for the ones of us who are on the edge, come lean over. There's an amazing world on the other side of self-discovery. Those who are doubtful and you think all that stuff is pie in the sky, how are we going to do this? Bottom line, I've got all these shareholders things, I've got responsibilities, I got to do this, this, and this. You're living in a lie. You're living in a lie. That's the lie of the mind and the old structures. All it takes is a few mental, emotional gymnastics, transformations, which can happen literally in a day. And all of a sudden, those mindsets can transform and bloom into possibility thinking. This time for self-reflection is useless if we don't have new direction.
Yes.
So not only must we have self-reflection right now, we must agree to our own soul. We must find the place to agree with the integrity, the next degree, depth, degree of integrity of our soul that is yearning for us to bring forth. We must live that and create new direction. And the more courageous we can be, the more we're willing to take the risk of uncertainty. We're willing to take the risk of Perhaps our profits will be affected. We'll go down. Perhaps we'll lose half our team. All the fears, let them come up. But if I can request of you this time, don't listen to those fears. Those are the mental enemies of a new reality that's all here to be birthed. So join us, please. We're all on the same planet. Team
That
Gaia.
was incredible. I challenge anyone with an opposing opinion to have a conversation with you, because that was absolutely powerful and so spot on. And just the conviction with which you speak is incredibly inspiring. And I so resonate with your message, and I am so on this team with you. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, Satyen, for joining me today.
Brother, Sam, all good friends here. We're here to serve this all together, a much brighter reality. And we all have what it takes. It's our time to arise together. So I'm so grateful for you receiving my message. Like anything, absorb what's useful, discard what's not, and come up with your best creations. Aho.
Ladies and gentlemen, Satyen Raja. Take care, brother.